Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining my session here today. I'm going to present today Cumulus Networks together with Erik Kessels from Fairbanks. And the goal of my session today is to present you Cumulus Networks and open networking, web-scale networking for enterprise networks. And I'm going to present a little bit, about Cumulus, what we're doing exactly and how we do that. And also tell a bit more about the web-scale networking market today and how it fits into OpenStack. And then Erik is going to talk about the use case that Fairbanks did together with Cumulus and our partner Dell EMC with one of our accounts in the Benelux. Okay, so let's kick it off first and foremost. Who is Cumulus? So Cumulus Networks is a US company founded late 2010. So we are almost around now for almost 7 years now by the end of the year. And Cumulus Networks has been founded by Gio Rivers, who is quite well known in the market for his time he spent at Cisco and Google, where he already developed like many products like the Catalyst platforms initially, the Nexus platforms as well. At Google he was a network architect as well, and there he saw that Google was actually developing their own network operating system that could run on top of bare metal switches. They would buy straight from the ODM manufacturers in Taiwan. And that's where he got the idea to found his own company, Cumulus Networks, so to make this web-scale type of approach of networking to make that possible as well for any business in the world. So we started to sell actually the product back in 2012, in the summer of 2012. We started to sell Cumulus Linux to the open market. Before that, we went already into production with a major cloud scale operator in the US, who is currently running Cumulus Linux on top of 80,000 switches. You can imagine it's like really a web-scale company. But again, today we are more and more focusing as well on the broader market space. I joined Cumulus Networks back in 2014, and our initial focus was mainly on the hosting side and web type of companies. But today as well, we do see like a big tick up as well in the classical enterprise market as well. So yeah, needless to say, growing very fast. We're currently 150 employees around the globe. And grew last year over 200%, and this year I want to repeat that as well. Okay. So what are we doing with Cumulus Linux? So Cumulus Linux, we have built like a Linux operating system that can run on top of bare metal switches. So you really can and have to compare it with how the market evolved in servers as well, where you went from mainframes to closed between brackets Unix systems to today the open compute platforms where you can buy any server, and can put like a multitude of OSs on top of the server. You can do now today the same with networking as well. So you can buy today a bare metal switch. You can put like an OS on top of it of choice. And we have chosen Linux because Linux is already an existing tool in the data centers. 70% plus of all servers in the world are running Linux today. So Linux is the obvious language in the data center. So for that reason, Linux is a choice because it gives you immediately like a massive ecosystem as well to manage, operate, automate your complete environment. Both, the server part as the networking part. So it basically looks like this. You have like your cable and optics. We have like 8 different hardware partners at the moment that have open networking switches that can run Cumulus Linux on top of their boxes. I see colleagues here from Dell EMC, Mellanox. We also run on top of HP as well, Supermicro, Quanta QCT, etc., etc. You also see there on the screen as well the Facebook logo. Facebook has also a couple of switches as well, which they open up as well, and they make them available as well to the broader market as well. So we have a box which Facebook calls the Facebook Backpack. It's actually a 12800 gig port switch that's like completely built to the OCP standards, and that can also run today Cumulus Linux as well since the latest release 3.4 that we announced in August. So today you have a choice to run Cumulus Linux on, again, 8 different brands, over 60 platforms, ranging from 1 gig up to 12800 gig port chassis today. Now, web-scale networking is a relatively new terminology. It's mainly promoted currently by Gartner Group. We'll tell a bit more about it in a minute as well. But web-scale networking is all about, open networking is all about automation. It's all about optimizing your data center networks operations in your data center. That's the whole idea of web-scale networking. So there are a couple of things which are relevant here. First and foremost important is like the network disaggregation part, so that you give like an open supply chain when it comes to acquiring your hardware apart from the software as well, just like you do for the server market. Automation is a very key topic, as you can imagine. So moving away from manual configurations and CLIs to using automation tools. And again, we're Linux, so you can use any automation tool on the market. Puppet and Ansible are very popular, in networking, but you could as well. We have customers using SaltStack as an example. We have customers using Chef as well. You can really choose your tooling, but also with that comes as well, a dramatic capex saving as well, because you have freedom of choice, freedom of supply chain. Capex is important as well. So and it comes bottom line. Cumulus Linux bottom line is always like to optimize your data center. So why are the big web scale companies doing this as well? Why is Google built a Linux operating system? Why did Facebook build an operating system on top of open networking switches? Because they have to optimize the network operations. Full stop. Okay. And you probably saw, a little bit more recently as well, also Microsoft for the Azure cloud. What did they do when they built a new operating system to run on the bare metal switches? They built Sonic. And what is Sonic? Sonic is Debian Linux. Okay, so even if Microsoft today builds a network operating system, they use Linux. So it makes an awful lot of sense, to use Linux as well on the data center switches as well. Again, the goal is, to reduce capex, opex. You can imagine if you Google, Amazon, Facebook, you have very big data centers. It's a huge cost for you. It's the main cost probably as well that you have in the company. So bringing down that cost is extremely important. And that goes as well for almost like any business in the world. Nobody wants to spend too much money on any kind of IT operation. You always have to optimize for cost. And we do that together with Cumulus Linux and running Linux on top of a bare metal switch. So these are a couple of things, that also comes from Gartner as well. By using Linux again, you get this massive ecosystem, for tooling. I already mentioned automation, but you could as well look at monitoring tools, all kind of orchestration tools. There's so many things out there. We always get this question like, we're using this tool for our server monitoring. Can we also use it for Cumulus as well? The answer is always yes, of course, you can. Okay, so it gives you openness, it gives you freedom, and that's really important. Next to that, we give you choice as well. Again, we give you choice from a hardware platform perspective, but we also give you choice as well from an application perspective. You don't have to use Ansible, you can use Puppet, you can use SaltStack. The choice is yours, okay? Next to that, automation, of course, very key, but also the architecture that we build as well. We're not a hardware manufacturer. We don't try to sell you a very big, expensive box, okay? So we are really all about the software, and we believe that in today's market, a leaf spine topology, based upon one new device is really like the topology to go for. Now also, and this slide is not really coming through really well, but also Gartner came out recently with new Magic Quadrants as well for web scale networking or for data center networking, and also for the first time, we as Cumulus also are showing up there as well, and as a visionary company. And we're very proud of that, that we were in that Magic Quadrant, because as we want to go now more and more as well to the classical enterprise market space, all of a sudden, Gartner becomes more important. If we sell to our traditional customer base from the past, they don't care too much about Gartner. If you are like a company we have companies in the Netherlands like Surfsara, the data center from Surfnet, we have Hostnet, people like that, they don't look at Gartner Magic Quadrants. But if you want to sell to a finance, enterprise company, this becomes all of a sudden like a key topic, Gartner Magic Quadrant. So we really positioned as one of the most visionary companies today in the networking, data center networking space. And also, they call it as well again, web scale networking, and they're highly recommending a couple of things at Gartner. They say, for instance, also, first and foremost, take your network stack apart as well, just like you do with your servers. Also do the same thing for your network stack as well. Take the hardware and the software apart. That's a key thing. They also say automate as well, as much as you can, because automation is, on the one thing, the big advantage the speed, okay, that you can provision new switches. But secondly as well, it also will avoid, a lot of typo mistakes and stuff that people typically do when they have to type 100 lines, on 50 different switches, there will be plenty of typos. So automation tools is solving those type of issues. They also say if you can do it like a complete, network replacement, the good thing with Cumulus as well is you can really start small. If you have a 30 rack data center, you could easily buy 2 top of rack switches, running Cumulus Linux, put them in production and learn, from that, pilot project. All we do with layer 2, layer 3 functions, it's all standard based. You can always integrate into existing switches that you already have in place in your data center. So you can start small, with a pilot project. It don't need to be like a rip and replace of all your complete data center environment. And that's also quite important to know as well. We have a few customer cases here as well, using Cumulus Linux in production. JP Morgan, again, showing that we're now very popular as well, or getting more and more popular as well in the more traditional market from enterprise as well. JP Morgan is the 4th largest bank in the US. They just spent another $1 million with Cumulus a couple of weeks ago on Cumulus licenses. So this is really becoming really big accounts, relying on open networking, on web scale networking, doing high levels of automation and going for an open supply chain and networking market. Next to that, a couple of other references, Athena Health, Medallia, probably less known in Europe, but they are both, active, mainly data center companies and, doing all kind of, web scale stuff. But I also have a slide, which is covering more customers. So a couple of here, which are actually based in Europe as well, like Yandex, which is the Russian version of Google, more or less. Yandex is also initially was a search engine, but in the meantime, they also have like an Uber taxi service as well in Russia as well. They have 7,000 racks in their data center, so it's mega scale on the Russian scale. So it's one of our customers. Switch is on there as well. Switch is the counterpart from Surfstar in Switzerland. They're also using Cumulus as well in the leaf-spine topology. And talking about topologies, this, how people used to build data center networks in the past. And you can see here, you have in the center of this topology 2 car switches typically, and then you have your distribution layer or access layer, which then sometimes are often collapsed as well. But usually it looks like that, because traditional vendors want to sell expensive chassis. Okay. Now we believe that a leaf-spine topology is a much better technology, much more scalable. It's a cheaper technology as well, but it's also at the same time more redundant as well, because what we do is we split out the car into what we call multiple spines. Okay, what you see on this slide here, you will see, I think, 6 spines in your network. So the whole idea of this type of topology is, that any component can fail, any component will fail, but if it fails, it should have like a minimal to no impact on your overall data center performance. And this is also the way that Facebook, Amazon, and other networks are built, and we see leaf-spine adoption now. I think most people today, if they build a new data center, they look at leaf-spine topology anyway today, because this is the way forward. Okay. Also, you probably have all seen these videos from Facebook as well on YouTube, where they walk through their data centers. They don't replace a component when it is defect. They just like every week they walk through the aisles of the data center and they replace just the defect components. That's how they work, okay? Because it's built, in this way, so anything can fail, will fail, and if it fails, no panic. We'll replace it when it arranges us. If a car switch fails, and if you have 2 car switches only in your data center, it's all hands on deck. It's big panic, okay? So this, the way we build networks, and we're also going to automate and the complete infrastructure as well with like one automation tool, with one monitoring tool. We're going to monitor it. Not separate tools for networking and data center and servers. Okay. From a topology perspective, you can basically build any kind of topology, whether it's now layer 2, layer 3, layer 2 down to the host, layer 2 down to the leaves. Our preferred topology is like a full layer 3 topology, but we understand that's not always possible. But we can even take the layer 3 down to the host as well, using BGP and so on. But from a topology perspective, we more or less with Cumulus Linux cover all kind of, let's say, layer 2 and layer 3 features and functions you might need in a modern data center. Now, where do we touch with OpenStack? When it comes to network, we have a Neutron ML2 plugin, for networking. That's the simple answer, to OpenStack and networking, basically. But also, we see that people as well, customers as well, tell us, more and more when they do OpenStack is that, why Cumulus and OpenStack is like, we wouldn't see, why we would use like a closed networking switch in an OpenStack environment. So this is like a remark that came back from one of our customers in Germany, actually Heidelberg University. They said, okay, there's no point using a closed networking switch in an OpenStack environment. The whole idea of OpenStack is to work with open tools, to be in an open market, and then it perfectly fits, with the OpenStack concept and idea and philosophy. So they like, this whole idea of running Linux on an open switch. Okay, and And we also believe, personally that, Linux is also the network language or, for the data center. So again, Linux makes an awful lot of sense. And I already mentioned Microsoft Sonic before. When Microsoft again developed a new operating system for their Azure switches, Sonic, they made it, Linux as well. Okay, and you cannot say that Microsoft is the biggest fan of Linux in the world. So this is really a very strong validation for our approach and our technology. So this was like my introduction about what we are doing as Cumulus Linux as a business presentation. My colleague, by the way, is talking at the same time, unfortunately, in a technical session. But we also had like a business case as well that Eric implemented as well, or implemented with his colleagues as well, and we'll talk about as well a little bit. Now, you maybe can take the microphone.
Let's see if we can make this work. Is it working?
Yep.
Right. Good. What we did is we did an OpenStack implementation with Van Genechten. It's a company that's based in Turnhout. It's in Belgium. And what they needed to have a Linux environment for the developers, so they would like to use OpenStack. But also another question that they had is from how can we incorporate the OpenStack environment inside of the network topology, because we're all using Cisco and it's pretty proprietary. And they would have more a Linux-like operating system on the switches. So because then they see, because the Linux guys know how to handle that, so they can easily adopt also the network configuration. Because what you see is that the separation between the guy who operates the cloud and the guy who operates the network, those two are coming closer much more. So the distance between those departments are getting much closer. So they wanted to also to take that gap. So they wouldn't have the network guys doing this and the cloud guys doing that. So they want to close the gap. So that for them, that was their first initiative to choose for a different kind of operating system on their switches. Then instead of Cisco, they moved to Cumulus Networks. So that was the side from the customer, and the costing side was also an issue that they had. So they also were looking for more cost-effective network operating system. So that was the view from the customer side. So that was the benefit of those. And from our side, because we are doing OpenStack and our engineers who are implementing OpenStack, they also need to implement the network components on the customer side. So the customer is saying, this is a rack. There you can build OpenStack. I need to have you take care of the networking. You need to take care of all the physical hardware in the rack. So our OpenStack engineers, they also need to implement a network switch. So what would be cool if they run CLI commands to do the OpenStack implementation, and also running CLI commands on the network, so to implement that. So from our perspective, it was a really good thing to do fast implementation, because when we want to do OpenStack implementation, we want to do it fast. And in that way, we could do, on this particular use case, do a really fast OpenStack implementation, and with the network included in that. So just give you a little bit more insight of how that environment was looking like on the customer side. So the customers was using Dell hardware. So that's all the machines that you see in the racks are the Dell machines. And it was a 2 data center environment, but it was not, the distance between the data center was not really big. So they had about 300 meters between it. So they had just 2 data centers on their campus. And, but they wanted to split up the OpenStack environment across those 2 environments. So what we did is we set up 2 Dell switches on the left side, and that's DC data center 1, and we had set up two switches on the right hand side was data center 2. And because of this design, this environment was completely redundant. So if one data center fails, then the OpenStack environment was completely up and running. Because if you look on the diagram, then on the left-hand side we have 2 OpenStack controllers, and on the right-hand side we have 1 OpenStack controller. So when the left-hand side fails, 2 OpenStack controllers are gone, but at the right-hand side I have still 1 OpenStack controller that can handle that. And based on this reference architecture, what we built on this customer, the implementation was really fast. And actually the integration, because in the diagram you see on top that was the network components that the customer had. We only had to hook up 4 links to core switches of the customer, and in that way we could easily incorporate the complete OpenStack environment in their environment. So actually the only problem that we had was we need to play with spanning tree, because that's the parameter in the Cisco switch was slightly different than we had on the Cumulus side, but that was the only thing that we had to get the network up and running within this customer. So for us, from our perspective, the speed of implementation was super fast, and the network configuration with Cumulus is very, very easy, because you have, if guys, you know, those are working with Linux, they know on a Debian side, you have the interfaces file where you put all the network configurations in. On Cumulus, it's exactly the same. You have the interfaces file, you put all the parameters in for your switch configuration, you load the switch, and your switch is up and running. So configuring that it was really easy. And for us also, this is our greenfield scenario. So if we are going to another customer, just pick up the switches, we pick up the network configuration file, we pick up the OpenStack implementation script, and we are ready to go to do the implementation. So in that way, we can also leverage that to do fast deployments. So from my perspective, it was a really good cooperation with Cumulus and Dell to do this implementation, and it was really fast, so the customer was happy about it. And I think that's, for my opinion, that are the keystone of using Cumulus, to just make it easy, and make it easy also for the engineers that are operating the cloud. So I don't know if anybody has a question, or do you want to?
No, I mean, if the questions, you know, it's good time as well on this topology, absolutely.
Good, everything clear, that's good.
Okay. A few more slides as well to cover, because you might now say, okay, this looks nice, I want to try it out as well. So we have like plenty of tools for Cumulus Linux as well to try it out, you know. I mean, the website, first and foremost, like, is full of information, but there are two key tools that we have as well where you can try Cumulus Linux. One of the tools is Cumulus VX. Cumulus VX actually is a virtual tool, you know, that you can download from the Cumulus Linux website. And that allows you not just to emulate a single switch with the VX, but also you can build like a multiple switch topology as well. You can build your leaf spine topology. If you then also go to the GitHub repository, by the way, from Cumulus, you will find there a complete leaf spine topology pre-configured already. And also there you can find like Ansible demo scripts, OpenStack demos. You will find, what else do we have? Ansible Puppet scripts and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of tools, you know, and demos we already have pre-prepared for you as well. We also recently, because, you know, the thing with VX is, you know, it consumes quite some, you know, memory and, you know, CPU space on your laptop, so building a bigger, you know, configuration might be a bit cumbersome, but we have also now built as well Cumulus in the cloud as well. And Cumulus in the cloud actually is doing the same thing, but we are running it on our Cumulus servers, you know, so you can make an access code, and within 5 minutes you have like access to a leaf spine topology from Cumulus, where you can start do all your testing, okay? And then the Cumulus in the cloud configuration, we even have added like containers on host as well. You can play with our NetQ, what is it, you know, monitoring tool. You can play with HostPack as well, which is our combination of routing on the host with monitoring as well. So it's really very, very easy, you know, to test and start with Cumulus Linux if you want to, okay? By the way, the Cumulus VX is a perfect emulation of Cumulus Linux. You can also, by the way, not just use it for learning and trying and testing, but you can also use it and build it like in a virtual way as a kind of a backup solution where you test new configurations, new features, new releases, you know, before you put it live. So it's really a great tool, you know, that many of our customers use, and some have built like an 800 switch, you know, topology in a virtual way, okay, and test all the new features in that way. Also within Cumulus we have built like a big community as well, very important are the VX community, but also we have a Slack channel now as well. So if you want to get engaged into the Cumulus story as well, through VX, through the Slack channels, through the community, there's like a lot of information you can grab together, and you can exchange ideas with other people. Most of them in Slack already are using Cumulus. If you want to test some things, you get into issues with the testing. Very easy, you know, to get community support as well with Cumulus Linux. Okay. So this was, you know, my presentation. Thanks a lot for being here. We are like also on the booth as well. We're on the right. If you look at the, you know, the space on the right-hand corner, you know, between our partners from B1 Technologies and Mellanox and Dell. We are in the same corner, all of us. And also you can win today an Amazon Echo as well. So if you want to win that one, you can just come to the booth. We have a bag full of rocket turtles. You can just guess the number of rocket turtles in the bag, and then you can win eventually an Amazon Echo, around 4 o'clock. Okay, so very welcome to come and see us. Thanks a lot. Any questions? Because I might probably still have maybe a few minutes because it's break now anyway. So any questions? Yes. Yeah. So I mean, we have Dell EMC, we have Mellanox, we have HPE, we have Supermicro, we have Ajima, we have EdgeCore, Quanta QCT, Supermicro, and now also the Facebook box, but they're only available through Cumulus. Okay, so we have either on the one side the fully disaggregated solutions, but also for the more enterprise type of customers, we also have made a bundle which we call Cumulus Express. So you can buy from Cumulus, where you buy actually a hardware with Cumulus pre-installed from Cumulus. Okay, so there are like two major options: fully disaggregated or like disaggregated, all coming from Cumulus. But there is like today 9 brands and over 60 platforms today that are available. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, and by the way, also in the Netherlands, it's easily available through different partners from Dell EMC, from Mellanox, from any partner, Fairbanks, you name it, you call it. Our distributor exclusive networks as well. So there is easy, access and availability to anything Cumulus Linux and white box switches today, which was like not the case like 3-4 years ago. But today it's very easy, the supply chain is completely done as well. Okay. Thanks again very much, and have a great day, and come and see us at the booth. Okay?